All right, and with that, we'll go ahead and get started here. Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are, everyone. My name is Phil Pinson. I am a principal sales engineer here at Pendo in our San Francisco office, and was going to take the next 30 minutes here to talk about Pendo feedback and how feedback can really help with understanding what to build next and how to ideally stream and collect qualitative feedback from your internal and external end users. As we go through today's presentation, if you have questions that you would like to submit, we'll reserve some time here at the end to go through that Q&A. There is a Q&A button within your Zoom menu where you can click on that and ask questions as we go throughout today's demonstration, and I'd be certainly happy to address those questions here at the end. We'll also have a recording of this that we'll post at the end of day as well, in which you could certainly circle amongst your colleagues and peers. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So what we'll cover today is really, I think, across a number of key points when we talk about feedback, starting with, how do we streamline feedback collection across not just your customers, but also your internal teams. Additionally, how do we uncover feedback trends with our reporting and using that reporting to identify product areas to improve. And then furthermore, validating the features and improvements in terms of prioritization or what to determine of those features and improvements to release next. And then finally on communication, right, with your product roadmap to engage and excite your customers and really use that roadmap as a vision, right, for some of your key accounts that you may want to communicate that to. So, as some of you may know, Pendo Feedback was a new addition to the Pendo family to really help complete or further, I should say, the product cloud. And what's really exciting about this is, historically, Pendo has really strived and have led in the quantitative feedback side of the equation. So if you think of whether that be your insights, understanding the product usage in terms of features, pages that are being most utilized, right? These are things that historically Pendo has really led the market in. And just as excitingly now, we have completed this kind of entire feedback loop of marrying that quantitative insights and analytics with the qualitative aspects. So what is the user sentiment and experience, as they are using your features or pages? What are your end users' thoughts of that new feature that you may have released, right? And how can you really reach them in app with easy to understand qualitative surveys to not only have that feedback, but then be able to streamline and gain insight to help build your product and determine your product roadmap. So this is where the evolution of the user's product experience comes into play with that marriage of that quantitative and qualitative. And so if you think about kind of this entire user experience of onboarding, adopt, retain, grow, and plan, where Pendo Feedback really excels is from that retain, grow, and plan perspective. So in areas such as increasing your user health and satisfaction, goals on focusing to utilize and advocate user behavior, and then ultimately determining what to build next with your product roadmap. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump into Pendo Feedback. So I am now going to transition to our Acme CRM application here. And so think of this as really starting from the end user's perspective. So this is kind of the part one of this demonstration is how do we easily obtain end user feedback, from the end user's perspective. So think of this Acme CRM as a kind of dummy web application for demonstration purposes. So this would be equivalent to a web-based application, at your respective firm. So as an end user here, there are multiple ways that we can achieve that end user feedback. The first would be utilizing Pendo's Help and Resource Center. So this is where it could come in, and if you recall, the Resource Center is a resource for linking your respective content, onboarding materials, maybe key product announcements, right? These are kind of all kind of key aspects of the Resource Center that we've had. And what we've added here is this area called Share Your Feedback, where as an end user, I could come in and I could actually submit a request here by making a suggestion. So if I click on this, make a suggestion here, this is where we can have a very simplistic form here to submit a request where I'm asking what my problem or request is, what I'm trying to achieve, what's my current workaround. These are some of the key questions that we like to typically ask. These questions can certainly be configured, right? But we recommend, that kind of sweet spot of anywhere from, a single question to no more than, 4 or 5 questions. The beauty of this is that if I start kind of typing in here, a new opportunity, this being the feature that's not working, or if I have an enhancement here, you can see that other requests will appear from other end users that I may want to rather choose. And the value behind this is that I can easily now streamline or centralize the request without having to have duplicates, right? So it's a great way to kind of single that out. But if I wanted to continue this workflow, I could certainly come down here and type in what I'm trying to achieve and what my current workaround is. In addition to the Help and Resource Center, we also offer a way to submit feedback via like a toggle, right? And again, I think one thing I would really like to stress here, this is all within app experience, right? So you're no longer having to reach your customers via email or some external method here, where I could now also expand this toggle here, also submit this request via that toggle window. This can also be white labeled. So where you see Pendo up here in the top left, this could be certainly masked with your logo and marketing to ensure that seamless end user experience. But to continue this, what I would really stress from the end user's perspective is it's not just an area for your end users to submit feedback requests, but this is also a tool to which, as an option, you can use to communicate what's new or additional suggestions by others that your end users may find valuable. So if I scroll down here, you can see where you can announce that what's new in terms of requests. But then also if I come down here and look at the suggested by others here, I could come in as an end user and vote on these respective requests. Now, the beauty about Pendo feedback is we kind of take this a step further. So voting certainly will indicate some level of interest, right, for your end users on those requests. But this prioritization toggle here is really where the value comes in as far as understanding what's a must-have versus nice to have with your end users. So if I kind of toggle any one of these requests here, you can see that the other requests will change in retrospect so that there's always a priority here to, again, really understand what is that must-have versus nice to have. Additionally, with the end user dashboard, and again, this is all kind of as an option, you can take this a step further and communicate product roadmaps. So if I click on this kind of launch dashboard here, what we're looking at here is the end user dashboard. And so this is where, again, this could be white labeled here with the same value that we just walked through. But if you look here on the left-hand side in this navigation bar, I can now start to mention those key releases and the statuses of those releases. Additionally, my product roadmap. And when we say roadmap within Pendo feedback, I like to think of these as communicating key roadmap themes to key or important accounts or even customers of those accounts. So you may want to indicate what is coming up from a quarterly perspective, let's say for the next 12 months or less, whatever time frame you want, and then indicating those requests here within those roadmap themes. So you can see in this example here, we have these key themes that are defined. If I hover over any one of these, I can see the requests and the statuses assigned to those. So this is a great way to communicate, maybe not your proprietary roadmap internally, but at least roadmap themes to those key accounts. Now, one thing I'll note is you could have multiple roadmap themes and toggle the visualization of the permission sets to be internal only and or external, and then assign the external to a subset of accounts / end users. Another way to look at this is a what's coming as far as what's being planned and what's being built. So again, all really helpful tools to not only easily scale your feedback efforts from your end users, but then use Pendo feedback as a communication tool for what's coming, other requests for voting, right? A great way to kind of democratize that qualitative feedback. So with that, we'll kind of transition out of the internal view, because if you could, as a good logical next question would be, okay, well, now that I have all this feedback coming into play, how do I actually centralize and report on that feedback? So within Pendo's product cloud here, in order to get to that internal Pendo feedback dashboard, I would come down here to Pendo products, and you can see we have the insights and guidance, and then now we've added this feedback. So what this will do is it'll launch the dashboard here for the internal view. And you can see that, for that internal perspective, I can now look at, what have I prioritized based on requests submitted here? What's kind of my most valuable requests from visitors? What's been perhaps waiting the longest? What's my most popular requests? And what are some of my latest requests? So just kind of off the cusp with the default dashboard, we're already kind of centralizing a lot of these requests coming into play. Now, a few things to note before we go forward as far as how these requests are managed. So, Pendo feedback, we've been collecting and learning kind of best practices for over 5 years now. And a few things that we've learned is, it's important to kind of have the mindset of, a SWAT team or a Tiger team managing these requests coming in. So what do I mean by that type of team? Ideally, it would be somebody who represents certainly your support or client success, in addition to product, and then perhaps including key members from sales, marketing, even engineering and development. And having that kind of key, internal team to manage these requests coming in. As we kind of walk through the components here, you'll quickly understand, there's certainly a role for each of those different members to play as we talk about managing feedback and setting up kind of an operation here to really streamline that process to again, ultimately help determine your roadmap and what to build next. So as we kind of walk through that, the other thing I would highlight is up here in the left-hand corner where it says suggest. This is where your internal users can certainly submit requests as well. So, Pendo feedback is not just for your end users, but certainly your internal, respective teammates and colleagues to submit a request, whether it be on themselves or certainly on behalf of a client or visitor here. But going back to the dashboard here, as we talk about managing those feedback requests coming inbound, what's great about these requests is that if I click on any sort of perspective here, you can see that with each of these requests here, I could go ahead and choose whichever status I want chosen. If I change, or let's say if I wanted to have this go to a planned status here, this is where we offer a direct integration with Jira. So for those of you who have Jira, what's really cool about Pendo feedback is I could actually set up a new Jira ticket with this request and link it to this request. Your use case for Jira doesn't change, but the beauty of it is that as the Jira ticket changes status, the status of those requests gets automatically pushed to the end user. So you're able to kind of remove that barrier and really help communicate to your end users that, hey, this is a request that we're working on. Or maybe perhaps, this isn't a request you're working on and you've maybe set it to decline. At the very least, you're communicating that something that the request has been reviewed and that it's at least been determined whether or not to proceed. But we won't have time today to go through the managing of these requests, but just note that in addition to the statuses here, you have capabilities to combine statuses, to send customized messaging or emails to those end users, add additional visitors to those end users here, have elaborate discussion, whether it be internal or external with these requests. So a lot of really key value sets here as far as the management of those requests with that respective team. Now, as we transition to the reports here, this is, I think, where a lot of the kind of rubber hits the road with feedback. So as I mentioned, we've been kind of learning these best practices for 5+ years now. And one thing that we've really taken to heart is these predefined reports. So this is really helping you understand, like, look, for some of you out there, you're just not going to have the resources to respond to every single individual request submitted by your end users, which is actually okay. What we've learned is that it's really best practice to have it be as easy as possible for your end users to submit feedback, but then have these types of predefined reports to help prioritize and centralize these requests so that you can prioritize your limited time on what to review. So this first predefined report is what we call the Visitor Smart List. So the Visitor Smart List will look at your most active paying accounts visitors. So this Smart List value that you can see, this column here, this is calculated by taking the account value, which is typically with an integration with your Salesforce or respective CRM system, the number of votes, and then priorities to sort this list. So again, it's account value, number of votes, and the prioritization. So just with those three metrics here, I can now easily understand which are the key requests that I should have my team review. Additionally, we have what we call the effort versus value report. So this is another report here where I could really help understand, what's the low-hanging fruit as far as which requests to work on. So what this will look at is the development effort, which is estimated when you're managing those requests as they're coming inbound. Let's say it could be from your development or your or engineering/product team, and then combining that with the request value. And so you can see, like, if I hover over any of these requests here, I could see, again, what's kind of that lower hanging fruit as far as lower development effort, higher value, versus the request that, yes, we certainly would find a ton of value in. It's just the development effort might be a little bit higher. But you can see that there's a lot of other predefined reports here. Certainly, requests from churned accounts, I think, is a really interesting one, right? Can you identify trends here from those churned accounts? So very interesting predefined reports here that you'll certainly find value when it comes to prioritizing that centralized feedback. Note that if you do want to, have any sort of advanced reporting, especially with additional fields you might want to bring in from a Salesforce or CRM system, we certainly have that capability with the advanced tool as well. Where I'll end today's demonstration is really on the value of feedback as far as an ROI perspective here. And so if we kind of go to the metrics here, I can certainly see, the statuses of each of these requests and how they've trended over a period of time. But where I think that most of the value from the ROI perspective is what we call the CEO dashboard. So this is where I could really help understand, how are my votes, prioritization, new requests, fulfilled requests, and viewed requests trending over a period of time, which is default to 30 days, but certainly change that here. But you can see that it's not just everyone, but certainly my end users or visitors, and then also my internal team. So this is where we can kind of decipher the individual requests, right, between your end users, i.e. visitors, and then your internal teams. But if I were to just kind of stick with the visitors here and just kind of scroll down, this is where I could look at my dollars saved and my ROI percentage estimated. Where I think this makes more sense is if I scroll down here, those metrics are being bubbled up by, I think, some of these key metrics. So where I'll kind of end today's demonstration is really on kind of keep these key metrics in mind here in terms of how you can communicate the value of a tool like Pendo Feedback, whether it be on conversion time saved, and this is based on a 15 minutes per request, support ticket time saved, and then conversion time saved, right? And whether that be time savings in addition to certainly dollars saved, right, by assigning an estimated dollars per hour. Again, this is a great way to estimate the value of Pendo feedback. So with that, I'll go ahead and pause for now to answer any questions here. I think as we kind of summarize the value of feedback, we talked about the end user view, right? And what that looks like from the end user, and then transition to, now that you've got that centralized feedback, how do we easily report on that feedback and then help really build our product roadmap and understand what to build next. So with that, we'll go ahead and start taking questions. And I'll just go ahead and populate that here just a second. So question was, in the requests from churned accounts feature, what CRMs are supported? So the answer to that question is Salesforce is our primary kind of two-way integration. And so when I say two-way, what I mean by that is not only can we receive visitor level, account level, in addition to product level fields from Salesforce, but then you could also use that as a form for users, whether it be your sales, marketing, to submit internal feedback requests as well. So they don't even need to necessarily log into Pendo feedback to submit those requests. Again, this is from like your sales and marketing or your end users from that CRM system, but they can just rather submit the their feedback with the same questions that you would have for your other users as well. Now, if you do not have Salesforce, we do integrate with other CRM systems. We do treat those as a one-by-one approach as far as understanding what CRM system you have, what its export capabilities are. So yes, we certainly do support those alternative CRM systems. So we would just need to figure out which system you're using. I know HubSpot can certainly come up as well. Again, we've all had experience with those systems. So it's not just Salesforce, it's just Salesforce is more out of the box when it comes to integrations versus other CRM systems. Another question here is, what's kind of the current state that you typically find from other applications, and how are they collecting feedback today? So typically we find that it's a fairly manual process. So whether it be as manual as a spreadsheets, but then I think what we see more commonly too is kind of the out of application feedback process. So more specifically, obtaining feedback with one-on-one surveys, emails, phone calls, right? And I think there's certainly some value to be gained for that. I think that's coming from the SaaS world myself for over now 13 years. I think that's what I've certainly been accustomed to with my respective product teams. I think though what has been discovered is that out of application feedback is certainly is more time intensive and not as easily scalable. And so I think what we've really found value with feedback, or specifically Pendo feedback, is that in-app experience, right? To obtain that level of feedback as your application is top of mind from your end users. So kind of really removing that barrier to obtain and extract that feedback, as your end users are within your application is typically where we've seen a lot of value from that current state to the positive business outcome. Another question, are there integrations to help notify features requests via email to the proper Tiger teams or distribution groups? Yeah, really good question. So as far as like the notification of feature requests, so kind of a few things. As far as like your internal teams being notified, I think what we've learned is the best practices there is certainly, being able to log into Pendo and see all the latest requests with the dashboard. As far as notifications themselves go, we do have capabilities to indirectly integrate with like Slack and other notification systems. Zendesk is another one as well to submit like ticket requests so that your internal teams can be notified when those requests come due. So I think it first starts with understanding the nature of the request you want notified, because maybe you certainly don't want to be notified on every single type of request, but certainly maybe more like highly prioritized ones. And then, going back to, the teams kind of managing those requests, typically having some sort of a cadence to check in, with that Tiger team or SWAT team, whether it be weekly, bi-weekly or whatnot, to kind of review the latest requests coming in. Again, starting with those predefined reports, but then certainly in sort of advanced reports as well. And then from there, certainly refining the notifications, whether it be from, a Slack or some sort of instant messenger, in addition to, a support ticket request system like a Zendesk. All right, so with that, I think, we're almost at the top of the hour here. Really appreciate everyone's time. If you do, I know there's a few other questions that came in, so we'll do our best to circle back to each of you respectively for those additional questions. If you do come across any additional questions here, though, feel free to email webinar@pendo.io. Otherwise, really wanted to thank everyone's time today. Hope you found value of uncovering Pendo's feedback. Certainly didn't have enough time to get through everything when it comes to Pendo feedback and how we kind of manage a lot of those requests coming in at a more detailed level. So certainly happy to set up additional time with with certainly the sales team here at Pendo, in addition to the sales engineering team, to really help understand if Pendo feedback would be the right fit and how that could really be implemented within your current product today. So with that, thank you everyone and have a great rest of your week. Cheers.